Hey everyone, SpencerFan1937 here with a review on George the Steamroller. So, George is actually one of my personal favorite road vehicle items. Not for any particular reason, I just always thought his model looked kind of cool, and I don't know, he's kind of unique because there's not many steamrollers on the island of Sodor, I guess. And he also has a pretty cool backstory, which we can get to right now. So, George first appeared in the Railway series books. His story was part of a wider collection of stories, and his was just titled Steamroller. So, pretty, pretty unique. um, so basically, George's whole thing is that he's, kind of arrogant and grumpy all the time. He has this feud with Sir Handel, that carries over into the television series in an episode also just called Steamroller. So, in the episode, George basically purposely causes an accident with Sir Handel, and it causes Sir Handel a lot of shame and embarrassment. But Sir Handel also takes credit for kind of driving George out of the railway because after the whole incident, George just decides to leave. George does make other appearances in the show, however. I'm pretty sure his last one was in the Great Discovery movie, of all things. It's been ages since I've seen that movie, so I don't know exactly what role he plays, but I'm pretty sure it was more of a minor one. I'm pretty sure it was also supposed to appear in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, which is interesting. Unfortunately, that obviously never really materialized, but I guess in our hearts he was always in the movie, so I don't know. Anyways, so that's basically George's backstory. Basically, his whole shtick is that he's not too fond of the engines on Sodor, and he's kind of just assigned to do odd jobs, mostly just rolling random roads, I guess, and making them look better. And that's his whole thing. Anyway, so that's George the character, but what about George the model? Well, this particular model of George came out in the early 2000s, and it actually had a pretty decent shelf life. It was on the shelves from 2002 to 2010, which makes sense since that's around when The Great Discovery was released. I could be wrong on that. Um, so not a bad shelf life. Um, this model, as you can see, has probably seen some better days, but it still looks pretty good. His whole point is that he's a functional steamroller, and I think this model accomplishes that pretty well. The first thing you notice about this model is this sort of olive green color, or some type of green. I don't know, I could be wrong on that, but I think it looks pretty nice, pretty true to the model of the television series. I guess we can just start in the back here. So in the back, you notice he has this cool cab here, and on this cab, it's kind of like this weird shape. It's basically just a rectangle, and then it's kind of like almost an L shape there. Basically, the cab has. I'm pretty sure these are made of plastic. I don't know. These could also be made of wood. But basically, there's not too many details on there besides. I think I'll use the top and half for this. Besides this sort of outline, this red outline of a rectangle there. Um, this cab piece is actually separate from this bottom half. So this bottom half is a separate entity. And also there we have these two black circles there as details. And this gear and this wheel are obviously connected. So when you move the wheel and you move George, the gear actually spins, which is pretty cool. The gear also features this black magnet in the middle. Um, all of this eventually leads up to this roof here. It's kind of this light gray with a magnet on top. Not too interesting, but pretty cool, I guess. Anyway, so you have this cool cab shape here. This cab piece, I guess, is technically separate from this bottom half here. So this bottom half keeps going under and beneath the boiler, but this top half eventually stops and just becomes the boiler. So everything from this point onwards is pretty much just made entirely of plastic, at least on the top half, and also including the roller right there. So George's boiler is pretty nice. It just features his name right there. I think I'll use stop and head again. So that's just George. His name is just written on there. Pretty cool. And it's basically surrounded by these two yellow stripes on either side of his name, which are pretty cool. George's boiler eventually becomes his funnel piece. He has this plastic funnel that's, I don't know, pretty stands out, I guess, mainly because of this sort of yellow crown that's on top there. Um, his funnel piece eventually just becomes his face, which is kind of interesting because the funnel piece is more circular and his face is kind of this weird, I don't know, hexagonal shape almost. Um, Before we get to his face, the roller is pretty nice. It's connected to his face and the funnel piece by this red thing right here. and it's basically just this gray roll which surrounds this green tube. So that's pretty cool. George's face is interesting. Not quite sure how to describe it. It's I don't know. It seems like a pretty nice smile. But you know, from a distance, you can't really tell with George. He's kind of, I guess, ambiguous. You could say. He almost looks kind of like smug or ambiguous or upset. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell from a distance. Um, so that's the front of George. Pretty cool. One thing I will say is that this cab here, it's kind of like in the like his model in the television series, like he appears a lot more taller, like his funnel is a lot more thin and it goes up a lot more and it meets the roof here. I don't know how they could have fixed that. Maybe they could have made this cab piece smaller, and or this yeah like this piece here like a little smaller, a little less tall, so that would have made the roof go up more, or at least appear to anyways. I don't know. On the other side, there's not much going on. There's actually less going on. There's no gear piece there, and there's no details on this either to make up for it. Um, on the back, there's not too much going on, although there are these two cool prints there. I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to be. And you also just have his magnet stuck on the back there. On the back, you have George just written there in all its glory. So there's just so you know it's George. So yeah, that's about it. Overall, a pretty cool model. Not too bad to have. Um, Pretty nice character too. I think he had a pretty good amount of cameos and other appearances in the show and the books and whatnot. As a model, I think he's pretty fun to have. And I don't know, he makes for a good character because there's a lot to do with him. There's lots of story potential here. But what do you think about George? Should George have been permanently expelled from the island of Sodor, or should he have been given a second chance like he did in my series? I don't know. Let me know in the comments section. And while you're there, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and also consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much for watching.